there is such a demand problem right now that we cannot provide citizens with enough homes, that if we can just do something, and this is another thing I really like about it, is value add, you aren't creating more homes, just updating the existing ones. With this one, we are creating more homes and helping that supply deficit.
Welcome to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. Are you trying to get out of debt, invest, or just not sure where to start? Then this is the place for you. We discuss different ways to get out of the rat race and build your wealth. Join us on this wild ride to financial freedom.
Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni, and today's guest is Flint Jamison. So, Flint, super excited to have this chat with you today. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome to the show. This is the Average Joe Finances Podcast. And one of the things that I love to do, the very first question that I ask is, we want to know more about you. So we want to know your story. If you want to go as far into your background as you want or as little as you want, that's fine. But tell us, who is Flint Jamison?
Yeah, I'll hit it at the high level. So I'm a mechanical engineer by education. I went into aerospace, been doing that for 20 years. I'm a program manager. I have my MBA, but I want out of the rat race. So 2018, I started investing in real estate. I did my own duplex. I bird that property and then very quickly moved into syndications, started educating myself in syndications from there. And then this year has been pretty big. Got an apartment, did a fund to fund with about 700 units. And then now I'm getting into build to rent coming up here in October, November.
That's pretty awesome in just a 4-year span, really, almost 4 years. So 2018, you got into real estate investing. You bird a duplex. That's awesome. My first rental property that I bought when I first got into real estate investing was also a duplex. It's pretty funny. A lot of people start off that way. And then you got into syndications, right? Yeah. Did the fund to funds, which it's funny because off camera, we were just talking about that a little bit. Yeah. And now you're getting ready to do build to rent. That's something that's newer that I don't think too many people talk about. You hear about it a little bit. That's pretty interesting. So actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to take this down that road.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had plenty of syndicators on the show. We talk about that all the time. I think I've had one other person talk about building to rent, but we didn't really get too deep into that. So I think this will be a really good topic to talk about. If you could just right off the bat, what is building to rent?
Yeah. So build to rent, it's simply put, we're building a community of homes. It's like we're building a housing development, but the goal is to rent these houses. So taking it one step further is because the goal is to rent the houses. We will put amenities in, just like your Class A apartment buildings. We'll have your clubhouse, we'll have property management, we'll have on-site maintenance, dog runs, whatever it may be. And then on top of that, these houses are starter homes because the U.S. is seriously lacking in starter homes. So we'll do 1,000 to 1,500 square foot homes. They'll be 2x2s, 3x2s. Yeah, just a nice little community for people to bridge that gap from apartments to houses, because the affordability these days, people can't afford to get in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so a small family starting off, that, or the two people that met each other that were living in an apartment, they want to start a family. They're like, hey, we want to get that starter home. There's not really much out there to choose from, especially if you want to go at it from a renting standpoint, if you're not ready to buy a home yet. So having something like this ready and available, that's pretty good. You're building entire communities, right? So you said you're going to have the clubhouse and everything, any type of dog runs or parks. So what does this compare, I guess, maybe cost-wise, doing it this way versus just building like another Class A apartment complex?
Cost-wise, it's less to buy homes. Building a big apartment complex, you're building a big commercial building. The other thing I really like about it is we can build, say, 10 homes at once. And as soon as those 10 homes are done, we can occupy them while we're building the next set of 10. From an investment standpoint, we can start cash flowing much sooner than an apartment building where it has to be 100% complete before you can even occupy it. So you may be set back 2 years on a big apartment building. Yeah, we have to put in all the roads, utilities to everything. That's probably a little bit more complex than maybe an apartment building. But from structure standpoint, these little cookie cutter homes are much cheaper.
Yeah. So when you, especially since you have to build like the roads, install all the utility systems and everything, do you add that in as a cost, like in the rent, as like an assessment or something like that, like over a period of time that before it gets paid off and then, it's not getting charged anymore? Like, how does that work?
I guess I don't understand the question. Maybe
Well,
we repeat that.
for a lot of developments, or if there's a lot of like big work that needs to be done just on the real estate side as a real estate agent, you'll see like an assessment come out because several
Yep.
repairs had to happen to a street or to a community. And basically the assessment goes out to all the people that live there. And then they
Got it.
wind up having to foot that bill.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. There's the whole entitlement phase. Maybe we got to back this up a little bit more. And hopefully I answer your question. So we buy raw land. We may have to rezone it. We may not. From there, it's all the entitlements. We have to get the engineering approval. We have to get environmentals, a whole list of things that have to get done. And yes, there may be costs there. One of the things we're doing for our build to rents, the partnership I'm working with is buying the land and paying for all the entitlements before we bring investors in. So all of that stuff is resolved. Yes, you may have to go to council, get votes. There is the not in my backyard communities that'll vote things down, right? So one of the things to buy down on all that risk up front is the partners are funding that whole bit. And once we're ready to cut dirt, we call it the horizontal build, where we're putting in the roads and utilities. That's when we get investors in because all of the engineering and everything else has been approved. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So basically you guys are going to foot the bill right up front and it's not something that's going to be an overtime costs. Okay, on. Now, okay, so what does this process look like? Because you said that this is going to be faster than, right, if you were to stand up a brand new apartment building. As you're building these homes, you could start putting tenants in right away. So is your focus like, okay, we're going to get this block finished first before we start working on the next one? Or like, how does that look as you're building? Are you trying to do everything all at once?
We're going to do, I guess it's no different than like Richmond Homes building a housing community. They start on a block of homes and go. And that's legitimately who we are partnered with as a housing builder. So they choose their most efficient path to build these homes. So once the roads are in, then we start popping houses up.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I'm curious because like, a lot of people, when they're going to invest their money into something like this, and it takes time, right, before they can start seeing a return.
Absolutely.
So this is a little bit different than going into like your standard value add syndication. Yeah, and I'm just trying to like really get that out there so people that are listening right now aren't thinking, what happens when I put my money into this and when can I expect anything back?
Yeah, let's play the timeline. Right now, these numbers are still tentative, but for 158 homes we're looking to put in, we'll cut the dirt in, say, November of this year, November 22. Okay. In March or April next year, we're planning on doing the vertical build, which is the houses. And we should have 158 homes built within 24 months. So I'm just going to throw out a number. Let's say it takes 4 to 6 months to get that first block of houses. That next block of houses, we plan on doing almost 10 houses a month. So it's almost like an assembly line. We may even speed things up by going prefab, where you get these pre-kits that you assemble and they pop up in 1 to 2 days, and then you put the guts in. These things can go up pretty quick. They are very small. 1,000, 1,500 square foot homes can get popped up quick. So we think we will be stabilized within 24 months or 24 to 36 months, occupied and paying rent.
No, that's great. That's really fast when you think about it. Like putting up, you said 158 homes, super fast. So you guys definitely have a good plan to make that go through. And prefab, yeah, that's definitely going to speed things up if you guys go that route. I've been finding it fascinating seeing some of these newer homes, like the tiny homes that are just like ready to go. You just unfold them, bolt them together, and it's like boom, everything's ready. It's crazy. Like even Elon Musk lives in one of those right now.
Yeah. You know what I really like is the printed homes. The printers.
Yeah. Have you looked at that as an option?
We're geeking out about it right now, and we know some people that do it. I have a lot of questions around it. I don't think our builder's ready to go there. I think our builder right now, his first step is going from just stick build to looking at prefab. Now, the interesting part there, prefab homes aren't cheaper than stick build, but when time is money, at the end of the day, it may be cheaper because you're not paying for all that labor for months. It just pops up.
Yeah. So cost of materials is the same, right? So it's still the same amount to buy everything that you need to put that house together. It's just the labor is going to be less. And then also the time period too, like the sooner you can get somebody in there renting, the sooner it starts cash flowing and cutting away at some of these costs that you guys are accruing while waiting to finish up the development. No, that's a great point. Now, what about like the cost effectiveness of, because I guess you said you were geeking out about it. So what's kind of like the cost effectiveness of a 3D printed home? Because is it pricier or is it more cost effective because you're looking at strictly concrete? Like what is that looking like?
I have no idea, to be honest. We haven't been down that road enough. What I do know is one of my partners said that the cost of concrete, so I'm not in the day-to-day on cost of materials, but he said cost of concrete, it would be more expensive than the stick build, but you get a very robust home when you're done. It's built out of gridded concrete.
Build those things in Tornado Valley and you've got the set in stone, so to say. They ain't going nowhere.
And they may be really energy efficient too, but this is where I get to the limits of what I know.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So let's talk about like your pathway to get to where you're at right now. So you started off with the duplex, you got into syndications. Now, did you start off doing like value add syndications, like what you typically see, buying a kind of not really beat down, but a apartment complex that needs some love and getting it built up and starting off that way? Now, if you went down that path, what made you decide to go into the development side right now, like with what you're doing right now? What kind of made that switch happen for you instead of continuing to do like value add?
Yeah, there's a couple things. There's a lot of value add opportunities that I will still bring to my investors. So I'm a capital raiser and I partner with very experienced teams that have a really good track record. So I feel super confident when I'm bringing my investors to a deal that I'm bringing them to somebody who has some serious track record. The last raise we did was a fund to fund. It was a portfolio of 3 properties, 2 different states. And with the interest rates going up, it's becoming a little bit more challenging. And on top of that, I saw the returns of build to rent being so much better than your standard value add, because we normally go in with a 5-year plan, 15% IRR or better. With build to rent, we can technically double your money in a lot less time. Also, build to rent brings full exit strategies. Let me go down that rabbit hole really quick. So we get done stabilizing, we occupy all the homes. We could turn around and sell the development to just some institution that wants to own it. We could write it out for cash flow. This one in particular we're getting into is in an opportunity zone. So we'll probably write it out for 10 years. And for those who don't know opportunity zones, most of them, you get to write off all of your capital gains at the end of that 10 years. So all of your earnings come out tax-free. If you want, you can cash out refi when you need to. You can sell each individual home off to investors. You could partner with a broker and sell homes off to, I was thinking investors, but you could also just sell them as homes to people that want to buy. There's so many different exit strategies. I'm even hearing that people are getting 60% done with their build to rent and an institution comes in and buys them up and just contracts them to finish it out. So like that could be like 12 months in and you get bought up and double your money in 12 months. So there's all sorts of strategies. It is hot right now. Build to rent is super hot. There's $60 to $75 billion of institutional money just getting funded to go into these.
Being able to double your money in 12 months is pretty darn good, if you ask me. Typically, what you see that happening in a syndication over a 3 to 5 year period. If you're doing it between 12 months to 3 years, that's pretty bonkers, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't want to
awesome.
advertise that. That's just when an opportunity comes through. But yeah.
Yeah, not everything's a home run, but you need to get a couple base hits, and eventually those RBIs are going to be coming in. Just keep getting those base hits. But yeah, every now and then you're going to hit a home run, and if you hit a home run with the bases loaded, that's a grand slam. So going to keep the baseball analogy going there.
Yeah.
All right, so like, how would this compare to? Because I know a lot of people are looking at different options now, as long as it's something that's going to give them a good return. So people looking still sticking around like the single family route, or like we talked about before, just regular value add syndications. What about like self-storage? Like, how does self-storage compare to something like that?
That's a metric I don't know, but I love self-storage just personally. And I hope to bring self-storage to not only me as an LP, I'd love to invest in self-storage, but I hope to partner up and bring some to others because it's strong returns. The difference is, I think the biggest thing is getting into build to rent, you can't anticipate cash flow. So if you need to live on like paychecks, like you've got enough money in value adds and you're counting on that cash flow, this one, you need to be invested for the long haul. And like I said, the long haul may only be 2 or 3 years. Or if you want the opportunity zone, write it out for 10.
Hey everyone, Mike with Average Joe Finances. The Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, aka RubeCon, is on for 2023. It'll be May 4th through the 6th in Phoenix, Arizona at the Sheraton downtown. I'll be speaking again this year, and I want to see you there. This year, I'm doing 2 speaking events, one about growing your investor network through podcasting, and the other is about investing while in the military. We have some great speakers lined up, so you don't want to miss this conference. Visit averagejoefinances.com/RubCon, REWBCON, or the link in the notes below and use promo code Mike for discounted tickets. See you there. Are you a business owner that constantly struggles with your CRM system and keeping in touch with clients? Well, let me tell you about the CRM system that I personally use. It's called HiveMind CRM, and I'm telling you, it's been a fantastic addition to my tool belt as a real estate investor, as a business owner, and as a financial coach. Go check it out at averagejoefinances.com/CRM. You're gonna love it. Again, that's averagejoefinances.com/CRM.
Let's get back to today's episode.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think this has been said a lot on this podcast, and you hear it a lot on other podcasts as well, but real estate is not the get rich quick thing. This is a build wealth over time thing, right? You want to be looking 5, 10, 15 years down the road, not what am I going to get right away? If that's the case, then go do short-term rentals, right? That's going to be the quickest way to make money and cash flow, which is getting a lot tougher to do on that side of the house because of all the regulations that are coming out. A lot of the bigger cities are saying, no, can't do this no more. So you're starting to see a lot of that happen.
Not in my backyard.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be careful with that. The thing with what you're doing, though, you're building a whole community in itself. So the neighbors complaining is the neighbors complaining to you, right? Because you're building the entire development. I did find that very interesting, though, that some people are doing this and like halfway through a project, you got institutions coming in saying, hey, we want to buy this from you just to have it, right? Because they're looking at it as a tax write-off for those larger corporations. It's crazy when you think about that, some of these larger corporations that are coming in and just scooping up all the real estate, making it harder for the average Joes out there to go out there and do it. That's why you got to scoop it up as much as you can right now. So actually, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what if you guys were putting this development together and let's say BlackRock comes in and says, hey, we want to completely buy all of this from you right now. What would you think about that? Because I know you're looking at this right now as the opportunity zone to have that 10-year complete write-off. If they buy it from you, you're going to be paying taxes.
Yeah, that is the best problem to have.
It is.
We plan on doing
having that
more, choice. Yeah, we plan on doing a lot of properties or a lot of build to rents. We are just getting started. We already have some land figured out for the next one. I think the best solution would be, hey, they're going to buy this out for a stupid amount of dollars. We're going to 1031 and move you guys into the next one. Now, it is a challenge because we have to keep investors' interest in moving out of that opportunity zone and people just expecting to ride it out for 10 years. I think a 1031 is probably the best compromise. They may not be able to get that opportunity zone unless we 1031 into another opportunity zone. So that is a challenge. I don't think I have an answer for you, but I would love to have that problem.
Yeah, no, that would be a great problem to have. Okay, that was just more of a curious thing. Now, with any type of investment, there's always risks. So what would you say would be some of the risks that you would see that are different compared to going into like your standard value add syndication with doing a rent to or build to rent?
Yeah, I just got to use recent history for those risks. Like back in 2019, no one would be like, oh, global pandemic is going to shut the world down. And that's my biggest risk. We just didn't think in those terms. But now we do. So the cost of lumber skyrocketed for a bit. Now it's coming back down. It's eased. It's still high. But if war in Ukraine, something happens to global supply chain, yeah, I guess that's the biggest risk. Or then there's always the act of God stuff that like pandemics that you can't control. But from an investment standpoint, the way I see it, the latest metric I saw is the US is so far behind on supply of single family homes to the point where we have to build 2.5 million homes a year for the next decade just to catch up. So there is such a demand problem right now that we cannot provide citizens with enough homes that if we can just do something, and this is another thing I really like about it is value add, you aren't creating more homes, just updating the existing ones. With this one, we are creating more homes and helping that supply deficit.
Yeah, that's actually a great point and something that probably doesn't get talked about too much. I had a guest on not too long ago, and we were talking about they were converting a hotel into an apartment complex. And one of the cool things about that conversion is that you're now adding more housing, right? Versus having that temporary hotel that was there that wasn't really helping out. You could have kept it a hotel and would have cash flowed fine after fixing it up. But being able to provide some more housing is just, when you're looking at what's happening in the country right now, I think that's huge, because a lot of people don't look at it, the giving back aspect of what people do as real estate investors, right? A lot of times real estate investors get vilified. They're greedy and they're just trying to make money. Look, everybody's trying to make money. Everybody wants to escape the rat race in their own way. But when you can find a way to employ your dollars to make money for yourself, for your family, and be able to give back to communities, right, by providing good, safe housing, you really, I mean, people don't look at that other side of it, and it just drives me nuts. So that's why I like to talk about that on my podcast, because I'm hoping that there's some people out there that are listening that are saying there is that other side of it that people don't talk about too much. And let's go preach that message. Let's go preach that side. I think that's important.
There's a lot of municipalities out there that are now encouraging build to rent or just new development in general, because they know that they need more homes. And so the whole NIMBY thing that really caused, there's a lot of things, but the not in my backyard communities put a stop to the building, and now we're hurting because of it. The local economy can be hurting because of it. Municipalities have turned around. Now they're advocating, and it's making it easier for us to get zoning and entitlements in place.
No, that's great. Not where I live at, really. It's always hard to get that stuff out here in Hawaii, but there's only so much land that we have.
That's true.
All right. Well, hey, so I'm curious now. This is just a personal curiosity of mine when it comes to if somebody wants to use like a self-directed IRA into a built to rent versus, because people do it right now with value add syndications. Is it the same way? Can you still invest it the same way as you would the other type of investments?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a syndication through and through. We follow 506B or 506C reg rules. It's no different than the value add syndications. It's just the returns and the business strategy are a little different on how we manage it.
Okay, fantastic. So for an investor, it'd be treated the same way. Just you're not going to get that first distribution maybe for 2.5, 3 years. So something like that. Okay. No, that's cool. Definitely good to know. Yeah, I think that's really it for the questions that I had regarding that. I think this is definitely a good topic to talk about when it comes to build to rent. Again, haven't had too many people come on and talk about that, and I think it's fascinating, especially when somebody goes from doing value add syndications to now this is development, right? This is real estate development. So I think that's really cool. All right, I want to transition this into something that we call the final round. It's where I'm going to ask you 4 questions, same 4 questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show. 3 of them are like hard hitting. We want to know how Flint reacts when he's under pressure or gets put in a tough situation. And then the last question's an opinion-based question. So if you're ready to go, we'll get this party started.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Flint, I'm going to keep this on the real estate side. So I'm going to say, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made in real estate?
So a year ago today, I'll try to keep the story quick, but we could get in a rabbit hole. I tried to do my first syndication with a bunch of new general partners, and it was a 23 unit here outside of Denver. Everything went sideways on our side. No investors were harmed, but I lost a lot of money, like the earnest money down. I learned a lot in all of that. I due diligence inspections, a slumlord for a seller, really. The previous owner was a slumlord, and he could care less about anybody else in the world but himself. Yeah, I failed big time, lost a lot of money, but I kept going. So that's the key.
You know what? The fact that you kept going is great, because for those of us that have been in real estate for a little while, we understand that when something like that happens and you lose that money, basically you just paid for education, right? So you got yourself a good education right there. You know what not to do on the next one, which actually I'd like to know, what was the difference between that first one that you did and the very next one? Like, what kind of lessons learned did you take with yourself to the next deal that you did?
I think the biggest one out of all of the failures, it wasn't just one, but we weren't successful enough at raising capital. So I immediately took that weakness, turned around and found some mentors that could teach me how to raise capital. Within 3 months of there, I got invited on a deal with some experienced partners, and we raised from there. And then that's how I got my first GP deal.
Awesome. Right on. Okay, so good lessons learned from that, and then moving on. So actually, this next question kind of ties into all that too. So what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started?
I tried too hard to know everything. For one, take action. I learned via podcast for too long. I needed to jump in and get some sort of educational program for one, and two, network, because this is a team sport. You have to find your team members. You don't have to know everything. Somebody else out there is going to complement your skills. Let them be the expert in the other thing that you don't want to be an expert in. But it's all about taking action quickly before trying to learn everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. You do need to find the people that will complement your weaknesses, right? You have your strengths, you have your weaknesses. So you want to find the people that have the strengths that are on that side where you're a little weaker, right? And that's how you build a strong team in anything, right? Not just real estate. But if you take simple team building strategies and apply that to real estate, you can really take it to the next level. That's awesome. All right. Next question is, do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started today?
I think I got to reiterate what I just said. You got to network and educate yourself. Don't be too stingy with your money. There's courses out there that's $1,000. Go spend it. I'm not saying go spend the $30,000 for a proper mentorship. You don't have to do that. I didn't need to do that. But at some point, you will need to spend money beyond books and podcasts to get into some course or attend some conference.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Besides the networking piece, like you said too, is that take action piece. And sometimes the right appropriate thing to take action is maybe buying a course, right? Education is huge. That's one of the things you need to do. You have to get out there and take action and make it happen. So that's
invest in yourself. Yep.
Yeah, that's the very first thing. Like before you start investing your money into real estate, invested in yourself first. So you understand what you're getting yourself into. I think a lot of people just jump in too blindly and then you wind up paying for that education, right? You'll pay for it. It'll just be in a different way and maybe not as cost effective or stress level. It's going to elevate your blood pressure. All right. Final question of the final round is, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast? Or both?
Yeah, I got so many, but I'll keep it short to maybe just a couple. Hunter Thompson wrote a great book on raising capital for real estate. There's a few key points, and it really got me started out of the gate when I went into that second property where I was actually able to raise money. Podcasts. God, I got so many good friends that do podcasts. I'd love to shout them all out. Like Julie Holly, the Conscious Investor. She's a buddy of mine. She does a great podcast.
Oh yeah, her podcast is great. It's one of the ones I listen to.
Yeah, nice. I got my start with Michael Blanc. I'll have to give him credit. I listened to him for almost 6 months straight. That was a good educational platform.
Okay, yeah, definitely some great recommendations. Do you know the name of Hunter Thompson's book?
Yep, it's called Raising Capital for Real Estate.
Okay. Cool. Simple enough. All right. Yeah, definitely a great recommendation. I have not read that. That is going on my list. These kind of questions, it's selfish for me, but I get to do that as a podcast host, right? And I get to get these great recommendations for books to read or other podcasts to listen to.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciate that. All right, Flint, this was super awesome, man. Definitely educational. I learned a little bit more on the built to rent side of the house, and I'm glad we got to talk about that more than just a passing conversation. So I think that's really good. So I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks.
And one more final question, and this is probably the most important question of all. And that is, we had this awesome conversation. People were like, man, I got to learn about build to rent, and I want to know more about Flint and what he's doing with this. So if you could, where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website, social media, anything like that you could share with us?
To learn more about build to rent, I think it's easiest just to sign up on my investor club. It's at vestuscapital.com, VESTUS capital.com. If you prefer social media, I'm on LinkedIn all the time and I'm pumping out lots of education. It's just linkedin.com/Flint Jamison.
All right, awesome. I will make sure I have those links in the show notes, make it easier for everybody that's listening right now. You can copy and paste or click away. Just don't do it if you're driving right now. Please just don't do it. Definitely appreciate it. Hey, Flint, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
It's been great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, and to my listeners, thank you so much for joining me and our special guest, Flint Jamison, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Flint. And aloha from Hawaii. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast, your source for beating debt, saving money, and investing. Learn more at averagejoefinances.com.